Hello and welcome to Learning on Demand with Nahara. My name is Janet Borland. I am the Association Director for Nahara. And today we are lucky to have a 2024-2025 sponsor. We have Nicholas Mazur from APN Staffing. He is a managing partner, and I am so excited to have him here. I love recruiting. I know you all love recruiting. Recruiting changes every minute, and it's always good to get some new resources, some fresh ideas. And for those that are starting in staffing, this is going to be a really great opportunity for you to hear from Nicholas. So, Nicholas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Um, like she said, my name is Nicholas Mazer. I work for a company called APN Staffing. We're a full service recruiting and staffing firm located in Arizona, although our recruiters live all around the country, and we do work from coast to coast. Um, so probably makes a little bit of sense to do an introduction about me. I started off my professional career after college actually in sales. I sold doors and windows, which is about as far away from recruiting as you could get. However, one of the things that always stuck with me was how hard it is for people to find not only good people, but just qualified people that check off the marks that they need to continue growing their organization or keep the status quo or not go backwards, right? And I experienced that a lot in my career in construction. Constant turnover, difficulty finding people, difficulty verifying what their experiences are. So I always had a interest in recruitment, although it was more tangential to my career than it is now, clearly. But a really neat perspective that I had prior to getting into this. So, like I said, my name is Nicholas Mazer. I am one of the managing partners over here at APN Staffing. Our offices are here in Phoenix, Arizona. I started with the organization, about 9 years ago now. And my original goal or reason that I was brought on was to help build their healthcare team. Funny enough, APN actually stands for Automotive Personnel Network. We started as a automotive dealership recruiting firm. If you know anything about that world, it's not necessarily the salespeople that are the hardest to find because a lot of them bring a lot of people in, train them up, and see who does the best. But the skilled positions, the title clerks, the controllers, the upper management, the service directors, very difficult to find the right fit in those dealerships. So we started out as Automotive Personnel Network in 2008 when, especially here in Arizona, the market dropped out. Retail car sales are one of the first things to go traditionally in the economy. So there was not a lot of work in that. And the organization got into healthcare and a couple other things to try to see what could keep growing the organization. Fast forward to when I was brought in, healthcare had started, but had not gotten too far. And I was brought in to build that team. Today, I still manage that team, but I also manage the day-to-day recruitment activities across all our teams. We have a educational team, a healthcare team, the automotive team that we talked about, and we do a lot of administrative and legal and all kinds of different things that our clients want for us now as well, which is neat and fun and keeps things interesting and exciting. So I do have 11 years of management experience. 9 years of it is, what I'm going to say, quote, in HR, although I know being in an agency, it's probably a little more tangential than working for a corporate HR department. We do have our own team that's internally that I handle HR for, though. We have 15 employees. We have about 100 plus contractors on staff at any given moment across the country working for our various clients. And then just a note about our involvement in the community. As Janet said, we are a 2024-2025 sponsor for the conference. I will be there at our booth. My partner should be there as well. His name is Tim, so come see us, especially if you see something in here that you're interested in or you have questions on. I would love to talk to you in person, and or we could, make it into another recording later on if there's something that people want deep dives in. I tried to make this simpler then I might want to, because what I find is that while some organizations are very clear and very knowledgeable about some of these products, others only scratch the surface. And so knowing what's out there is very powerful. And we need to know that to be able to do better for our companies, for organizations. So we are also members in the American Indian Chamber of Commerce of Arizona. That's where we're located. I serve on the board of that. We're active members in the Oklahoma Chamber, and we're an annual corporate sponsor of the Phoenix Indian Center. That's where our offices are located. So recruiting trends, there's really three things that people ask me about often. First one is, where are the candidates? We need people. We need qualified people, and we can't find them. We're not getting them. So we'll touch on that a little bit. More so than that, nowadays, with all the different job boards and all the different tools, finding candidates isn't necessarily the trickiest part. It's how to contact them, how to get a hold of them. So we'll touch on that. And then technologies that solve certain problems. There's a lot of talk about AI right now. I'm not the biggest fan of AI personally. I haven't seen a lot of it used super effectively yet. I'm sure a lot of us have played around with ChatGPT, and that tool can be super useful for composing an email or coming up with a PowerPoint. This one was not with ChatGPT. I did this myself. Or social media posts, or maybe taking a really long job description and whittling it down to be able to post on social media about. Those things are super useful, but all the other AI tools that I've seen so far, the job boards are starting to integrate it in. Some of the applicant tracking systems are starting to integrate it in. To me, it just seems very premature at this point, and also a lot of times really expensive. So I'm excited to see where that goes in the market, but it's not something that we're actively using day to day at this time. But we'll talk about some technologies that we use that are super helpful. So where are the candidates? Speaking to the choir here, I'm sure job boards is probably where most of us get most of our candidates from. The two big ones that we personally like to use, just because they work well in our location with the type of jobs that we recruit for, are Indeed and ZipRecruiter. There's a ton more out there though. There's Career Builder, there's Monster. I hear that those are super effective on the East Coast. We only do a little bit on the East Coast, so I'm not sure. But Indeed and ZipRecruiter seem to fill most of our needs. In addition to that, there are other smaller regional job boards, depending on where you live. Sometimes there's state-based ones, community-based ones. There's also specialty job boards. There's nurse job boards, doctors job boards you can pay to put ads on. Nahara has a job board that looks very effective as well for this community. So keep those things in mind and make sure you're posting to them, because the more you can get these things out there, the more likely you are to get in front of the eyes of the person that you need. And then we'll touch a little bit on a database, your internal database. Do you have an applicant tracking system or something to that effect? I am continually shocked at how many organizations or governments I talk to that don't have any way of really tracking the people that come in. And it's a shame because, well, we'll get into it in a little bit, but a lot of times when someone applies to a job, at least for us, it doesn't always work out on that position. Maybe there's one thing that's missing they're not qualified for. Maybe it's just not the right time, or the salary band isn't exactly where it needs to be, but you're working on getting those adjusted. Having those people organized in your internal database and having some ability to reach out to them later on is huge, because more than likely you're paying a lot of money to get that application in. And so maximizing your ROI on that resume that you received, I think is important for all of us, clearly. And then LinkedIn. LinkedIn is something that most of us are on, most of us use. Other than lower level positions, it's rare that I find someone that does not have some sort of a profile on LinkedIn. It's frustrating when they have 8 or 9, but usually people have one LinkedIn profile and it's out there. So of course, clearly, that's a place to find candidates. But how do you use it? How do you use it effectively? How do you get an ROI on it? What services do they have? What do you pay for? I'll tell you what we do, and it may be very different than what you need to do. We don't do any IT work, very little. And I hear that there's quite a bit of ROI and efficiency that can be brought in that vertical, but we just don't do it. So our LinkedIn usage is slightly different than a company that's hiring a lot of IT people, I guess I would say. So job board utilization, I touched on the two that we use, and that is Indeed and ZipRecruiter. As you may or may not know, they both have two different products, and now they're adding on some new technologies that I'll touch on in a bit. One of them being resume databases, the other one being job ads. We'll touch on the difference between the different resume databases because they do operate very differently, and therefore how you are successful on those databases in your outreach is going to dramatically affect how well you get people to respond to you. And of course, this really comes down to, are you doing outbound recruiting? There are plenty of organizations that we work for that do have larger recruiting departments within their HR, and they do go out and outbound recruit. There are a lot of clients that we have too that do not do that, and they're using agencies and they're just using advertisements. Maybe they have a referral program that they're using effectively, but maybe they're not doing outbound. And I think that outbound recruitment, obviously it's what I do all day, but I think it's super, super effective if used in the right way and you're doing it strategically. Obviously, job ads are what job boards are known for. That's what they started out. I'm going to touch a little bit on how to be the most effective in our opinion, based on our experience and based on people that I talk to in the industry daily almost. And then we'll touch on maybe knockout questions, because that seems to be something that a lot of people are using nowadays as well. Going back to the resume database, Indeed has a very unique resume database. They changed this a number of years ago. You used to be able to pay for contact information for the candidates that you found in their resume database by doing a search. Now you have to message them and get them to opt into your sending you contact information back to you. Their product is also super expensive. I think it's around $4 per message to message people. You can get both discounts. There's programs that you can pay into with them where it's bundled together and you can get a little bit of cost savings on that. But my point is that the outbound message on that database is really expensive. So training your staff to be reaching out to people that are likely to respond, or at the very least are at least qualified, is really important, right? But more so than that, when you are sending that message, you only have a certain amount of words that you can use. It's very much like LinkedIn when you're sending a connection request. You have to grab their attention. So crafting that message in a way that does grab their attention is so important. And the way we like to do that is really, what's the differentiator of this organization that we're hiring on behalf of, or what's the unique thing about this particular job? Is it remote? That's huge right now. People love being remote. And it obviously opens you up to a much larger candidate base depending on where you're located. Also, if it pays a little bit better maybe than the market around you, that's a great thing to lead with. But whatever it is, you have to have a compelling message that goes out to these people that really catches their eye and makes them say, yeah, I want to talk to you. And the great thing is, on Indeed, if someone clicks on the no, I'm not interested, you get your message credit that you paid for back, which is super nice. We here at APN are always talked to by Indeed asking us what we're sending out message-wise, because I believe we run about a 50-55% response rate. Not all, yes, I'm interested, here's my contact information, but a mixture of yeses and nos. And what I hear from them is that is a very high percentage for their platform. So if anyone ever wants to dig deep into what we're sending out there, please message me. I'd love to talk to you about it. And it's very similar to what I do on job ads on these paid platforms, which I'll get into in a second. ZipRecruiter is more like the traditional resume database, where You pay for a certain amount of contacts, and you can pull up a preview of the resume, as you can see on the right. And if that is someone that you think is qualified and that you're interested in, you can just click a button and it'll give you an email and a phone number. Hopefully those are still accurate and they work. Usually one of the two does. A lot of times they both do. But it's very easy to identify a person, get their information, and then reach out to them. All those same things about having a compelling message clearly still apply, just less important because you'll have more opportunities once you have their contact information. So talking a little bit about optimizing job ads. This is an example of a job that we just worked on here in Phoenix, and the client posted the job description that's on the left on ZipRecruiter, and the job that's on the right is what we posted on there. And it's very apparent right away that there's some big differences there. And I've had conversations with HR leaders about policy and procedure, about having the full formal job description posted on any advertisement that you have for the job. And we've had conversations about, can you pare that down? Just conversing with people about how they can get more applicants, better applicants. And some clients of ours, some friends of mine have been able to get a more pared down version of that job ad approved to be able to go out there to market. Some have not. Obviously, that's going to be dependent on your organization. But the way I've always looked at it is, when you are putting it on your own website, full formal job description is great. When you're paying money to some of these job boards, you're really paying for advertising space. And so you have to think of it a little bit as like a Super Bowl ad. And what is going to draw people's attention? What is going to not overwhelm them with information so that they don't get through it? And or you get applications of people that aren't qualified because they never got down to the part of the qualifications or the requirements for that position. So I'm a huge fan in pulling it down to small, short, sweet descriptions on the paid advertising platforms. Sometimes I'll put in little notes in the job title about being in the pine trees or relocate to the pine trees, whatever the differentiator is for your organization or that particular job. Sometimes that can grab eyes just to get people to click on the job ad. But as you can see, we pulled that big, long 5-page job description and made it into a very short and sweet, succinct description with some requirements that are the most important. If you were to go and be able to read that, there's a lot more requirements on there, but they are things that if you have a medical license in Arizona, you already have for the most part. So just something to think about if you're not doing this. We have found, and people that I know in the industry have found, that the types of job ads on the paid sites on the right get a ton more applications. Not always all the ones you want, but sprinkled in there are the people that you're hiring. Touching on a few more things with optimizing job ads, one of the things I always think about when I'm paying for advertising is reducing friction. It's always going to get you more people. It might not always every single time get you people that you want or that are qualified, but to get that funnel, you need to start with a lot and be able to whittle it down, right? Reducing friction is the way I always look at it. And one example of that is one-click apply. We always use one-click apply. It's not nearly as nice for our recruiters, because if you go through the challenge of connecting your applicant tracking system to ZipRecruiter or Indeed, yes, once they go through the application process, they'll be in your ATS and no one has to manually input them. That's fantastic. That's great. In a perfect world, I would want that and I would love that. However, what market research and our own personal experience has shown us is that when you don't use the one-click applies, you get massive fall off. In some positions, it can be upwards of 80-90% of people that look at your job ad, click on the apply button, and then do not finish that application, because now they're getting asked all these questions and they don't want to go through that hassle right now. They haven't spoken to you yet. They don't know that you're a great place to work at, more than likely. They don't know all the little ins and outs of, yes, I really want to work here. So If you reduce that friction and you allow them to use that one-click apply, it is frustrating sometimes on the recruiters, on us, because it comes in as an email resume and we have to put them in the system to get them through the process, or have a conversation with them, get them that formal job description, because that's a requirement of our departments, and then get them to actually go through our application process. But you're able to have that conversation first and kind of work through the funnel before you waste too many people's time, and you will have more people to choose from, which I think is the goal for a lot of people. Another thing I touch on a lot, which is just a big problem on job boards, in my opinion, is resumes are not up to date. I can't tell you how many people I talk to where I get a resume, I get them every single day, where it says 2015 to current. I doubt that they are working at the same job for the last 9 years. That's great if they are, but that is increasingly rare, especially as we've gone through this pandemic. So what's going on there? I mean, even if you see a resume 2021 to current, I'm cautious because I doubt that's correct. What we found is that candidates are very much updating their resume on these job boards, but for whatever reason, if they update it on one of the products like resume database, it's not transferring over to when they do applications, or vice versa. And I've even heard stories of people that spent a lot of time on it and it didn't show up on either one. So maybe it's the candidate's fault. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't applied to a job in a while, but I'm not really sure that it is. So if you don't see required things on the resume, but they seem like they were on the career path to where they would be what you're looking for, I always say reach out. And we've had great success with that. You waste a little bit of time on some people, but there's some diamonds in the rough that you would totally miss if you just looked at the resume and didn't go past that. And then lastly, when we're talking about optimizing job ads, knockout questions are another big thing that people love putting in there. And I'm guilty of it too. I've done it for lots of jobs over the years. It creates that friction once again, though, where you are dropping people off that may be qualified because they lose interest, or their phone freezes, or their computer freezes when they're going through the couple questions. I tend to think if there is one knockout question, that's great. Any more than that can cause problems with getting candidates. So just something to think about and consider, and maybe do an A/B test and try out a couple ads to see if you have any better luck. I mentioned on one of the previous slides, having an internal database, commonly referred to as an applicant tracking system, although some of them are more CRMs. We use a product called PC Recruiter, and that is what a screenshot down below kind of shows us. Not very descriptive. All the personal information has been redacted. Actually, that was a ChatGPT thing. We took that screenshot, uploaded that screenshot into ChatGPT, and asked it to wipe out the names and the phone numbers and the addresses and the emails, and it did it, so I guess AI isn't all bad. It did help in that aspect. But have you invested in an applicant tracking system? Because like I talked about before, there are so many valuable people that are coming into your applications. And if you're not able to organize them and sort them and reach back out to them later, at some point you can see that as wasting some money. Another thing that I see quite often is a recruiter will leave an organization and there are job ads that are pointed to them. And so having an applicant tracking system that can grab these people and get them organized is helpful, because how many times have we lost a recruiter on the team and a couple weeks go by before we realize that there's applications in their inbox that we hadn't checked yet? I know I'm guilty of it, and I know plenty of other people that are guilty of it. So having an applicant tracking system can help with that. Some of the big things we use it for, and this may be preaching to the choir to some of you, but you can sort people that were disqualified and or we're told can never work here again. Clearly, that's a huge HR thing that we need to be tracking. We can also tag people. We can put them into dynamic lists. In our product, which is called PC Recruiter, we call it roll-ups. And that is what a example down at the bottom of the screen shows you. That is our registered nurse roll-up. It's got everyone that's a registered nurse that we've ever talked to or has applied to a job in there. And I can sort that by city, state, what specialty they have, how many years of experience they have, what certifications they have. Super, super powerful, and allows us to maximize the return on all the money we've spent on these paid advertising platforms over the past however many years. It also gives us the ability to email people in bulk. So if we have a new nurse job in Phoenix, yes, we can have all our recruiters go and call and email and text all those folks, but we can also just sort to a list, get it down to all the people that are qualified, and we can then either bulk email them out of your applicant tracking system if you have that ability with a job announcement, or you can pull it into another product like Emma or MailChimp or any of those bulk emailing platforms. And we and a lot of people I know have seen great success with that as well, just getting the word out. I touched a little bit on LinkedIn in the past and maybe what markets, what locations are super valuable for LinkedIn. And I think I mentioned that we don't use a lot of their paid products, save for one. So LinkedIn does have job ads just like Indeed and ZipRecruiter does. In fact, I think if you buy into their recruiter products, they have an applicant tracking system that you can tag on, or might even be included in those packages. Super powerful, gives you a lot of in-mails, gives you infinite views into the network of all the people that they have on LinkedIn. But it's also very expensive. So depending on your organization's budget and what you're looking for and how big you are, maybe that's not something you can afford. There are some ways that I'll get into that you can use LinkedIn super effectively and not break the bank. So one of the things that we do that's being shown here is when you find someone that is of interest to you that you'd like to talk to or invite to apply to a job, a lot of people will just connect with them and send without a note. But if you click that button, add a note, you have 200 characters to introduce yourself or tell them about a job. We have seen great success in using this method to say, hey, we're looking for a medical director paying this in the city of Phoenix. Thought you had a great profile, would love to connect. Something short, something sweet. We get a lot of connections that way. Not necessarily all people that jump on the job and want to apply, but they're more likely to connect with you. And if your goal is to get more people into your funnel for not just this job, but other jobs down the road, this can be a very, very, very effective way of doing that. So recruiting trends, still talking about how to talk to people, how to get in touch with them. We know how to find them. I think all of us know how to find them, although there's great tools to find more. But we've touched on ads, we've touched on LinkedIn, bulk email. Text messaging is something I'll get into in the technology side, but it is so useful right now. Everyone is wanting to communicate via text, and it's not just in that application process. It's all across the board. It's scheduling shifts, it's call-offs, it's when they're doing onboarding and they have a question on the tax form, when you're doing compliance and a year down the road, you're trying to get an updated certification for someone. Text messaging gets it done, in my opinion. It takes out a lot of the friction. Everyone will look at a text before they'll ever listen to a voicemail or read an email, if they ever even see the email, because their inbox is probably like the rest of ours and is a mess on the personal side. So text message is huge right now. But we also have implemented a couple things here that have been super effective as well, and most of them are free. One of them is what we call the 3-point touch. I'll touch on that in a moment. That is just about outreaching to people at any step in the process. Referrals are a very useful tool. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on that. And then some technologies that are really, really doing well in this market right now. So 3-point touch, really all it is if we're going to reach out to people, if we identify 20 people that we want to talk to about this job, we're going to email the 20 of them. Our email is going to have a more descriptive job description of the job. Probably not the full formal one, but you can make that decision. But it gives them a heads up that, hey, we've identified you as someone that might be interested in this. Here's some information on the job. We're going to be calling and texting you. Would love to talk to you. We usually follow that up with a text later in that day. It can be the next day. The cadence doesn't really matter. But then they see the text message that gives them an opportunity to say, no, I'm not interested, or yes, let's set up a time to talk. Or maybe it just puts your name in front of them again so that when you call, they answer. Then we follow that up with a phone call. Once again, the cadence doesn't really matter. But as you can see, they know so-and-so from XYZ organization has a job that they might be interested in. They get a text about it, then they get a call. The reality is most of the time we leave voicemails for people. No one wants to answer their phone anymore these days, but we have found that using all three of those and getting into a habit of always doing that is super effective. And once again, it's the same thing for onboarding. It's the same thing for compliance later on. We send them an email of what we're looking for, maybe give them a little bit of time, shoot them a text, and at the very end, call them if we still haven't gotten it back. And most of the time, we get whatever we're looking for settled with that text message there in the middle. If you also have LinkedIn and you're trying to reach out to somebody, send a message on there too if you're connected. Can't hurt, right? Referrals. I'm always shocked at how many organizations or recruiters don't have a good habit for asking for referrals. All it comes down to is asking the question, in my opinion. So many of us talk to great candidates or candidates that maybe aren't great, that are missing one of the qualifications that we desperately need to be in compliance, and we get off the phone without asking for referrals. That person more than likely has a good lead for you all the time. So if you can implement that into your organization, into your recruiters, your coordinators, it's huge. We over here at APN have a tracking list of referrals that we get in. That way everyone on the team can utilize that list as well and try to use those people. We've had great success with it. Another thing you do for referrals is forms. There's web forms. I don't know how effective they are. It probably causes a little friction, but I know organizations that give out freebies or gift cards if they send in a referral, and I'm sure people would love to do it for that. Social media posting can be really helpful for referrals as well. And then lastly, references. I can't tell you how many times we call references and we are maybe recruiting for a prosecutor and we're calling a chief prosecutor at another government to get a reference on this prosecutor that we're working, and they give us just incredible referrals for the next time we're looking for a prosecutor. Or maybe they tell us, hey, I might be looking for a job in the next year or two. Keep me in mind if your chief role comes up. Super important to just keep that in mind and continually get those people's contact information and organize it some way. To technology. Technology is so hard to figure out right now because there are so many products and all these tech sales companies are so difficult to really get down to brass tacks of what they cost. One of my first questions every time someone calls me about a new technology is, roughly what are we looking for money-wise? Because I got to know whether it's in the budget or not. And two products can do roughly the same thing and they can cost very different amounts of money, or they have different requirements on how many people you must have on the team to even qualify to buy their product. So it can be very frustrating. I'll talk about a few that we use that are very simple, easy to use, and better than anything, they're affordable in my opinion. So we've talked about AI. I know AI is going into everything. I would love to hear from you if you found something that works really well. Please tell me. Applicant tracking systems are a technology that we should all probably be using, and they all do different things. So the nice thing is, if you have a specific use case, there's probably one out there that does what you're looking for really, really well. Job boards have some new features that we'll touch on. I think Indeed has the ability now to take their ad that you pay for to show on Indeed and drop it into Facebook ads through their platform. They optimize it. They run the campaign. You don't have to do it through your Facebook account or your ads manager. I have not used that, but I've heard some good things from a couple of friends. ZipRecruiter has a new product that is kind of like a digital job fair. They will, if you have a job, you select it, say you want to do a fair for this one, it will send it out to however many people, and it will try to build a queue for you based on your availability. Maybe it's 1 to 2 next Thursday or 4 hours next Thursday. And they will build people into a queue so that you can go into interviews with them quickly, digitally through the platform. I can see that being super useful for certain organizations and certain roles. And then have you done X-ray searching? I think a lot of us have heard of Boolean search and trying to get around LinkedIn, because one of the things that always frustrates people I know about LinkedIn is you can only, if you're on a free account, you can only see the people that are first and second connections to you. Well, there are ways to see other people on LinkedIn without paying for a recruiter license, and we'll get into that for a moment. There's also contact info aggregators. Once again, this is really only for outbound recruiting, but there are some ones out there that are super effective at getting you contact information, and it's all built off LinkedIn. And then text messaging. Text messaging software, like I've talked about, is super, super important right now. We use a product called Text Request, and I'll chat about that for a moment. So getting into X-Ray, there's a website that I really like. It's called recruitin.net. I think if you go to recruitin, no G, .net, it redirects you to the same place. But really what this does is it allows you to create a search based on job title, locations, keywords to include, keywords to exclude, maybe even current employer if you're going after a specific company that you would love to see somebody from. You put that in, and what it does is it creates a Boolean search for you in Google. And really the power here is that this bypasses your own network on LinkedIn. So you can see people that are not first and second connections, or even if you have a premium sales navigator, I think that goes up to third connections, but not past that. This will give you basically everyone based on what the metadata in Google has for those people. And even better than everything I just talked about, that website is free. So try it out. You'll find lots of people on there. Of course, once you find them, now the work starts because you have to get contact information, right? So how do you do that? One of the ways we do that, and it is successful sometimes, not successful others, because not all data is perfect, but is a company called Rocket Reach. If you're familiar with Zoom Info, or I can't remember the name of who Zoom Info bought, but there's a lot of these companies out there that are built off LinkedIn that scour the internet for contact information, emails, phones. I believe some of them, it's crowdsourced, some of it is just web crawling. But this particular one, Rocket Reach, is, in my opinion, one of the more affordable ones, and actually has relatively good data. Not every person that you get their contact info for is going to be correct, but you can do searches off here, which will also bypass your network on LinkedIn that is frustrating to some of us, and come up with people that aren't necessarily first or second connections. But also, you can just take someone's LinkedIn URL that you identified from wherever else, and you can drop it into the search bar, and it will tell you what that email is, the phone number that they found, and it'll give you a likelihood of how accurate it thinks it is. Sometimes you run across people where it just doesn't know anything about them, and that's okay too. But we find a lot of success on this platform, and it's very useful. There are other ones out there too. Some of them are very expensive, but sometimes you get what you pay for with data. And then lastly, text messaging. I've harped on this a lot. We text so much out of this company, and it is so effective. I love it. We use a product called Text Request. Might not be for everybody. They all have different features and tools that you can use. They all have different abilities with APIs to maybe tie back into your applicant tracking system or your CRM if that's something that your department needs or requires. But this is the one that works really well for us. And the features that I love about it is, yes, you can text message with someone one-on-one. You can also send a group message. If you have 20 CNAs working at your local skilled nursing facility and your staffing coordinator needs to have the ability to tell them, we had a call off tonight, is someone available? You can have a group already set up there with all the CNAs that are active for you, and you can send out a really quick message that goes out to them. I guess that's more bulk messaging because you send it as a group, but it goes one-to-one. So if someone responds, it doesn't go to the whole group. There also is the ability to do group messaging if you have any reason to have people in a group and all talk about it together. It has the ability to schedule messages. I find this super effective because when I'm on the phone with someone, I set them up for an interview next Tuesday at, let's say, 8 a.m. I don't get into the office until 8 a.m., sometimes 8:05 if I'm being honest. So I don't really have an opportunity to check in with them in that morning and make sure everything's going okay. So when on Friday I set up that interview for next week, I can immediately schedule a message for a reminder to go out to that person saying, hey, 7 o'clock Day of interview, you have an interview at 8 o'clock in an hour. As a reminder, here's the information that you need, maybe the address of where you're going or the link to the Zoom interview. And by the way, here's some contact information in case you need to get a hold of me because something changed in your availability. Super powerful. There's a lot more use cases for it as well. You can also do text message from the website. We have a little, with text requests, maybe not all, but with them, there's a little icon on our website, anywhere you are, on our career page, about page, wherever, and you can click on it and you can fill out a little itty bitty form. You have to put in your phone number and a message, but that goes directly into our text messaging platform. And then you can message back and forth with people that just found you from the website. You can also send documents, PDFs. You can ask for someone's location with this platform. They're coming in for an interview, they get lost. You can send them a request to share location, and it'll, once they click accept, it'll pop up with a pin of where they are. So you can say, oh, you're right down the street, take a right and a left, and then it's the gray building right there. Once again, I can't talk about it enough. I love it. I think it's the way of the future. I know some people hate text messaging, but generationally, the more text is getting adopted, it's just going to be a necessary evil. So that's really it for technology and everything that I came here to talk about. I'm really excited to be at the conference in Oklahoma here in a couple weeks. You can see on the screen is my email, my direct extension at work, and our website. If you have any questions about any of this, come see me at the conference, shoot me an email, call me, whatever works best for you. I'd love to hear from you and would love to chat with you about some challenges you have, and maybe I can add some value there.
Thank you, Nick, so much for your insight. And I had some questions written down, but you answered a lot of them. So great job. And for our members that are going to be joining us at the annual conference this coming September, the 23rd through the 25th, go see Nick and Tim at the APN booth. They will be at booth 49. Any questions, recruiting, it changes every day. Thank you so much for all this information from AI to social media to LinkedIn, to getting back to people and texting. It's just endless. And thank you for all of the hard work that you do. Recruiters, you guys work some really crazy hours and always getting back to people. So thank you for all your work. And to those who join us, please reach out to Nick at apnusa.com. Thank you for joining us today, Nick. Thank you so much for joining. And everyone have a great time, and we will see you this September.
See
Take
you at the
care.
conference. Thank you.